Mike does love Elle. He's just not in love with her. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at the character of Mike Wheeler and the impact I think growing up Comphet had on him and his confusion over platonic versus romantic love. There's been a lot of worrying between Milleven and Byler shippers over who Mike truly loves, and people saying that Mike clearly doesn't care for Elle. But I'm here to argue he does. Throughout the show, we can see Mike's insecurities growing over not feeling the same way towards girls as some of his other friends do, and how he becomes defensive, projecting this onto Will and overcompensating with his relationship to Elle. I think a lot of Mike's confusion can be explained with growing up in the environment where heterosexuality was the only given route forward in life, and the need to feel a sense of belonging to his friends and not being left behind. Without feeling the same way towards others his age about relationships, Mike is led to assume that what he is feeling and experiencing is the same as everyone else's. However, as time continues, he begins to notice something is different, and maybe he's not the same. I am going to cover four main points today. Firstly, Mike's reaction to Lucas and Dustin's behaviour when Max joins the group and feeling different. Then moving on to Mike's early relationship with Elle and how his insecurities often led to him becoming performative with his relationship or feeling that he had to overcompensate in some way. And then we'll go on to some context to Mike's Comphet upbringing and the way that this can contrast to Will and how they dealt differently with feeling different. And finally, how Mike isn't fake or just a jerk, and that he really does love Elle. He just isn't in love with her. Number 1. Mike doesn't view girls and dating in the same way his peers do. Mike struggles when Lucas and Dustin bring Max into their party and start showing romantic interest in her. He struggles to join in the sort of conversations typical among groups of the same gender at that age discussing the other, and he gets frustrated with them because he generally doesn't understand what it's all about. When Lucas and Dustin are spying on Max, he seems confused and he doesn't understand how Dustin can know Max is cool just by looking at her. And also, he kind of seems happy when their attempts sort of fail. Mike doesn't want things to change. He enjoys hanging out with his friends in the way they have always done, and he gets frustrated when things start changing, and Lucas and Dustin want Max to start hanging out with them, and also that Will doesn't seem that bothered by this. He doesn't like the dynamic Max brings to their group, and the way his friends' actions start changing when there's a girl around and their priorities also start changing. He's always saying that they had this democracy voting system in their party, but this seems the first time for Mike that his friends have completely different thoughts to him about a subject like this, and he generally doesn't seem to understand. Interestingly, these things are exactly what he starts getting defensive about and accusing Will of in season 3, which I think that shows that Mike has grown insecure about his difference, and even though he now appears to belong as he has a girlfriend, he still feels very insecure and has this lurking feeling that he doesn't fit in. And while he's fixed his problem by changing to be like others, Will didn't, and this scares Mike. Number 2. When Mike does find a girlfriend, he is relieved to be finally fitting in, which leads to him being insecure and overcompensating. When Mike does find a girlfriend, he is finally relieved to fit in with his friends and finally understand what they've been so obsessed about. He assumes his feelings towards Elle and their relationship is the same that his other friends are experiencing in their relationships, and he does like spending time around Elle and is also protective of her, etc. All the things he would think a boyfriend would do. But he doesn't realize that this is not the same kind of love his friends have been experiencing. Mike is often still confused about relationships. He is unsure of how a boyfriend should act, which is also aided by Elle's character as she is still quite unsure about a lot of these things given her upbringing. And he often mimics what he sees in his friends. You often see him turning to Lucas for reassurance when it comes to the way that he sees girls, or he doesn't understand what he's done wrong and he needs Lucas's validation that that's just the way relationships work and Lucas doesn't know either, and that's just girls. I think it's also worth noting that we do see Lucas being unsure in his relationship and there's difficulties at times, but this is different than Mike's. Sometimes Lucas can act like a bit of an idiot, like when he drinks all the water when they're walking up the hill, or when he says that no one's perfect, but then goes, "Oh, but except you, Max." He tells Mike that Max has dumped him like 5 times before, but he can always make it up, and he's the one that encourages Mike to buy the gift for Elle to make things up. All the kind of stereotypical dumb boyfriend trope things that you see. However, while Mike may see this as exactly the same as his and Elle's relationship, we can see this is not actually the case. Lucas and Max, while sometimes fighting over dumb things, actually communicate and understand each other. Part of these things I mentioned is part of their banter dynamic and their personalities, and that they both understand each other and are similar in this way. And although Max often says that Lucas can make dumb mistakes, he does show that he truly cares for her, and you can see that she knows this. However, Mike doesn't really do this. When him and Elle are fighting over seemingly small things, there is no communication or as urgency to resolve the conflict. So this is why they become big problems when, for say, Lucas and Max's relationship, they didn't. When Elle dumps Mike, he doesn't think to go over and explain to Elle what's happening, Hopper's involvement, and apologise. Unlike Max predicts to Elle. He doesn't try and talk things through. Instead, he just sits there being confused and seeks reassurance from Lucas that he is not the problem, that he didn't do anything wrong. And then instead, he prioritises fixing his fight with Will instead, but more on that another time. Often, whenever Mike does do the right thing for a romantic partner to Elle, he does so only after someone else prompting him to do so, and doesn't have these natural instincts himself. As noted, he often takes Lucas's lead, and in season 4, he only tells Elle he loves her after prompting from Will. Mike often overcompensates for his insecurities at feeling different from his friends, from being very performative in his relationship with Elle, often displaying PDA such as always holding hands and constantly having to remind people that they are a couple and they are spending time and doing coupley things together. I don't think this means that Mike and Elle's relationship is fake, as I hope to show. I think Mike does truly care for Elle and does love her, and for him, especially in season 3, the relationship is very real to him. He doesn't know that there is something missing to make it a romantic relationship, and he believes it is one. Though there is something still in the back of his mind telling him he must be doing something wrong, as something just feels a little bit off. And I think this is a very believable characterization, considering the Comphet that Mike would have dealt with, which is true at any time, but especially growing up in the conservative environment that Hawkins and his family were in the 80s. Number 3. Growing up with Comphet. For anyone that doesn't know, Comphet is the abbreviation for compulsory heterosexuality, which is the idea that heterosexuality is assumed and enforced upon by society, regardless of someone's sexual orientation. So that's just the assumed route they go for in lives and the norms the society imposes. And I think this is something that, especially given the context of Stranger Things and the time and Mike's family, he would have definitely dealt with. So this point is a little bit longer and maybe feels like a tangent, but I promise it is relevant. Mike grows up in an environment where being straight is the only norm he's ever known. It's the only route for life he's presented. It's the only way he knows. So he assumes everyone at some point starts experiencing the same types of feelings and gets into a straight relationship, as that's just part of life. I want to stop here for a moment to compare Mike to Will and the different environments they were raised in, and how it could lead to their different responses to feeling different, despite probably struggling with similar feelings, as evidenced with the season 2 Mike versus season 3 Will parallels, which I mentioned earlier in regards to feeling left out and behind from their friend group. Will has always grown up feeling like him and his family are very different. They literally live right on the outskirts of town, away from everybody. He has grown up with separated parents, a single mother who works, and a brother who has also struggled to fit in at school and feels like an outcast at times. His father emotionally abused him, largely for being different and not conforming to the typical expectations of being a boy and being straight. He was bullied at school for being different, including for people thinking he was gay. And on top of that, he goes through all the traumatic events of season 1, where he is then ostracized even more as a result. So he has always felt and known he was different from other people, and he knows others around him see that too. However, his family, his mum and his brother, have always been very loving and supporting of who he is, and we can see multiple scenes of them who we know they suspect Will is gay, telling him in a roundabout way that that's okay. They don't conform to the typical family unit, and therefore there is less expectation that this is the only way forward in life. Mike, on the other hand, comes from a very traditional family. We see the Wheelers being described as the nuclear family, a father and a mother married young, a father who is emotionally distant but brings home the bacon, and a stay at home mother. We see Nancy describing feeling trapped in this expectation to continue this life. So it's reasonable to include Mike may feel similar expectations. We see their family vote for conservative political values and they live in a conservative area. Although some people have noted, and I agree, that there are some scenes between Mike and Karen, especially looking retrospectively, that hint towards her assuring him it's okay if he feels different, on the whole, there's not much avenue for Mike to see a different way through life than the conventional one that is presented to him. On top of that, he has an elder sister who, at least to begin with in season 1, is very distant, seems to follow the popular boy obsessed girl who can make friends, is good at school, and is seemingly living life in the expected way. Hopefully, this shows the different environments that Mike and Will were raised in, and how this may have led their different ways of coping with feeling different. In season 2, we can see Mike feeling different towards his friends, feeling like they're growing up faster than him, experiencing the expected things when he is not, and this insecurity grows. Mike, who sees that at some point every boy must grow out of childhood, find a girlfriend, and eventually become a husband and a father, sees this as an inescapable thing that everyone goes through at some point. So not only does he feel the pressure to do so, when he starts liking Elle and liking hanging out with a girl, as we don't really see that Mike has hung out with any girls before this, and at one point, I think in like the junkyard, Lucas even says that it's only because the girl doesn't find you gross, or something like that. Mike assumes that what's happening between him and Elle is this thing he's been told that everyone goes through, and assumes that what everyone else is talking about and experiencing is this, and he doesn't really have the chance to see that it's not. And later, when he begins to see this in season 4, we start to see the cracks appearing. Mike, therefore, does what he sees as the norm and assumes that this is what everyone else is experiencing, which is the definition of compulsory heterosexuality. Whereas Will, who knows that everyone else knows he is different and has been raised in a way that shows there is more than one way through life and that that's okay. In season 3, when dealing with many of the same things that season 2 Mike does, accepts that he is different and that he doesn't want the same things as others or feel the same things. And while it would be a stretch to say he accepts this, he accepts there is nothing he can do about it. It's just the way he is. Which we can see when he expresses that he feels like he will never fall in love, and the heartbreaking scene where he tears down Castle Byers. Okay, so I know that may have seemed like a bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to give some context to how the environment that Mike grew up in would have inadvertently shaped his views about himself and the route in life available to him, mixed in the sense of not belonging he was developing in season 2. That would have led to when he found a girl for the first time that he enjoyed spending time with and that he liked, he would have easily confused the platonic love he felt with the romantic love his friends were describing. And lastly, number 4. Mike does love Elle. He's just not in love with her. For a character who hasn't experienced romantic love, it can be hard sometimes to tell the difference between the two, and I think that's definitely something Mike finds when he meets Elle. For some context, when Mike first meets Elle, he has just lost his best friend since 5 years old, and there's clearly something missing in his life, and Elle feels this. Firstly, she gives him hope of finding Will again, and she also lets him act as the protector. Mike has always been the protector, and this isn't in a sexist way to Elle, it's just who he is. He's always been very defensive of his friends, which we can see by his defense of Will to the bullies and him literally jumping off a cliff to save his friends, which we all forget about a bit too much. And Mike is also a leader, and with Elle appearing and everything that's going on right now, this allows him to step into this role again. And I think this familiarity brings Mike some sense of comfort or direction in this awful situation that is happening in season 1. Furthermore, when they first meet, the two are very young. Mike and the others are coming into that stage of life where people may start experiencing first love and relationships. And if you think about a lot of tween relationships, they are not that different to close friendships, especially externally. At that age, the people that you say you like are often described as someone you like spending time with, you like sharing things with, etc. And that's often it. It's often only as people get older and the nature of relationships change and grow that the cracks start appearing, and we see this for Mike. While he can get away with this puppy love kind of relationship with Elle in season 3, especially with Elle's character in season 3 still trying to experience childhood and what relationships are, in season 4 we start to see this is not enough. Elle doesn't just want to hold Mike's hand and make out, she wants to feel real love and a real relationship. And Mike is starting to realize he doesn't feel that, and he panics. And we can see that. Yes, Mike loves her, and I think that is what he means in season 3 when he says that he loves her. He's talking about it in the context of not losing her, not as his girlfriend, but her literally not dying. But in season 4, he's starting to realize that that is not the sort of love Elle means and that Elle needs from him. And as he believes that friends don't lie, he struggles with this. Mike is not a liar by nature, and he doesn't want to become one, but also he feels like he is. Once again, in Mike's season 4 love confession, he talks about loving someone on their good days and their bad days, that they're a superhero and that he can't imagine life without them. Nothing explicitly about how Elle makes him feel romantically. Besides from the fact that this could be interpreted as him confusing his feelings for Elle and Will after Will's prompting, which that's a topic for another day, these things are all things that also describe platonic love, or any type of love really, and they are not explicit to being in love with someone. So, overall, I hope this shows to you guys the impact that growing up in a Comphet environment could have had on Mike and his ideas about love and relationships. I hope it also shows that Mike is not a fake or horrible person. I think a lot of Milleven shippers get very defensive when people suggest Byler or that Mike is not straight, as they love Mike and Elle's dynamic and don't want to think that it's all a lie. And I'm here to say that they're right. It's not all a lie. I don't think that Mike, especially season 1 to 3 Mike, was lying about his feelings towards Elle. I just think he wasn't interpreting them correctly, as he didn't understand that there could be other ways of feeling love. And even at season 4 Mike, I think clearly does care for Elle and does love her. It's just that he's starting to realise he isn't in love with her, and that's what's causing the problems. Hi guys, so I really hope you enjoyed. This is my very first video, so I thought I'd just come on to say hello. Let me know what you guys think. I have loved watching these kinds of video essays and analysis of TV and film for ages now, so I decided it was probably time for me to make one of my own. I am in so many different fandoms, and I don't know what it was about my recent Stranger Things and Byler hyperfixation that prompted me to actually start a channel, but I suddenly just felt I was going crazy with the amount of people not seeing what I was seeing in the show, and I wanted to share my take. I really hope to make more Stranger Things videos and videos from other fandoms, so if you could like and subscribe, that would be really helpful. Let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching.